Hi, everybody. I'm CJ Hunt, and today we are chatting with Brenda Scott Wlazlo, who is the voice of Maybe and Home as well, which we are just about to start recording here shortly. So we are very excited, Brenda, to be chatting with you about the top secrets behind the scenes world of audiobook narration.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
And I would love it if you could start by just telling us a little bit more about your background and yourself. There were lots of questions that came in from readers about how do you get into audiobook narration and what kind of skills and background might you have to qualify you for bringing stories to life.
Sure. I've gotten into full-time audiobook narration for just about a year now. Previously, I was doing acting, purely stage, screen kind of thing. A lot of independent films and like black box theater work. Went to college for theater as well. And so I've been in that world for about, I'm not going to date myself, about 15-ish years. And one of my very good friends in a show of mine also was doing audiobook productions in the Chicago area, and would talk about it often during our rehearsal process, and I was fascinated. I've always loved recreational reading. I read like a monster. I blew through books. I've had a Kindle since the first edition. I've just gone through all of that. And so I was like, oh, and you can do it out loud and also get to kind of direct yourself and also get to play all the characters. And that sounds amazing. And so he's the one that kind of mentored me through the process, and shout out to Pavi Presko. He's also very good. I got started with that, started my own little home studio, got my mic, started taking some YouTube tutorials and some online classes, and went from there. Yeah.
Nice. So pretty much everything in your life, when stacked up together, led to you doing this. It seems like it's a perfect crossroads of your skills and talents being put to use.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things that once I started doing it, I was like, wow, this is such a joy to do. And like, I get to use all of these different elements that before have kind of been isolated. So it was really kind of a perfect match, and I'm just enjoying the ride from there.
Nice. So I know there's so many steps that are behind the scenes that go into making a production, because it really is a production, as opposed to just reading a book. And I know a lot of people are curious about how do you decide on the voices for the characters and kind of bring them to life? What does your process look like for that?
Well, for your book, for example, for Maybe, I had a little bit of help with very good writing and some really detailed kind of visuals that were provided with our kind of publishing throughway called Find Away Voices. And so I get a breakdown when I get the script, and they are especially good, and you are especially good, because they allow for a more detailed conversation about what the author and what I are looking at as far as the character choices, even as far as like showing example pictures of what the characters could look like. From there, and from kind of doing an initial read of the book before recording, I make notes about anything where it mentions the background of the character, what other people say this character looks like, how they view themselves, and just kind of their upbringing and their kind of cultural background. And I look at all of those things and kind of piece together a mental image of a three-dimensional character of what this person in the real life is like. And from there, I just kind of trial and error before production until I find a voice that I feel like is honest and is really telling the story in the most genuine way, and I go from there.
Nice. I really enjoyed from the author side of that process too. That's one of the things I really like about working with Find a Way, is that it is a back and forth. It really is a conversation. And, you know, in those sample minutes that you get at the beginning, sometimes there's multiple different ways to do a character. And so we could kind of communicate there's a messaging system built into the platform. So it was really cool to be able to chat with you. I mean, this right now is the first time we've ever actually met, outside of, an email and then our comments inside the Find a Way system. So it is really fun to put a face to and a real personality to the other side of that, as opposed to just get to know you through the characters. But I'm curious, like, how do you try on those different voices? Like, and how do you keep track of all the different ones? Because I know it's a thing that I do. They're short books, but I cram a lot of characters into them. So how do you distinguish between those different characters? How do you make them have their own personality?
One of the tips my mentor Pavi gave me very early on was to keep a side folder with a little snippet of vocal for each character, kind of a phrase more or less that gets you into that character's mindset. So if it was like, I don't know, like anything from if it was a Western, it would be like howdy partner or something less benign than that. But you get that phrase and you put it into this folder. And then whenever I needed to reference back, if it was a character that was in chapter 1 that reappeared in chapter 8, and it's been a couple days or even a week since I've been able to visit that person, I could go back and see them very easily and get that vocal tenacity and in where the placement's supposed to be and all of that. So that's kind of my way of doing it. Other people have other ways. Some people just remember everything and bless them because I don't know how they do it. But that's kind of my insider trick that I was given very early on and religiously stick to.
Yeah, nice. And so one of the questions also that came up was around, as a woman doing men's voices, male characters, there's some choices to be made there, right? Like, do you go all in and try to lower your voice, an octave or whatever? Or how do you handle that sort of gender switching of characters, which is challenging for sure?
Very. It's definitely a little bit of suspension of disbelief when you are reading a book aloud, because there are so many different characters, and even the listener knows that unless you're wanting to listen to a radio play, that is going to be one person. I subscribe a little bit to definitely communicating with the author. I've had some authors that really want that distinguished kind of gravelly voice, and that's fine. If that's what they want, I can try and do it. I'm not always successful, but there is, for me, I think more honesty in a voice that is portrayed with differences aside from just vocal pitch. So you have many factors involved in a person's way of speaking. You have their accent, you have their pace, you have their tempo, you have their inflection, how they raise and lower their voice in a sentence. And all of those things can differentiate, and men and women specifically have very different kind of vocal patterns that allow you to kind of wiggle a little bit and less in volume or tone up and down pitch, but more in those little nuances to kind of play with the different characters. Specifically when I have several male characters talking to each other, I'll really employ that, because if I were to just lower my voice for all of them, then you wouldn't be able to tell who was talking.
Yeah, for sure. And that is a challenge as an author as well, trying to guess what your readers are going to want in terms of how dramatic to go, right? Because there's a real range and everybody has such preferences. And I actually really used to dislike audiobooks because a lot of the earlier ones, part of it was the pacing. I read really fast and it seems like often it's quite a slow pace, but they're expensive. So listening on speed and a half just kind of eats through your budget. So It's really exciting now that the prices are coming down, and that I think the narration options are opening up as well, because, with more companies like Find a Way, you're able to have a database of narrators that you can pick from, and you don't have to be, 20 years established in the industry to be hired by HarperCollins in order to get into it, right? So I think we have access to a fun set of fresh voices, which is a newer thing that just wouldn't have been an option even 5 years ago. So that's pretty exciting from the author side to be able to access cool new people and, just find something different and fun. And being able to choose the voices, I go through the auditions and I'm like, ooh, nope. Yes, okay, I like that one. So you get a certain measure of control, which is also really nice because you're going to have to watch the whole thing as the author in detail and probably multiple times. You got to listen your way through every single word that's spoken and check it against your book to make sure it's what you want. So, it needs to be a voice you're going to love, not just what your audience is going to enjoy. So it has been really fun kind of choosing and then getting to know the people behind those voices.
Yeah.
How long does it take to record a finished book? Like a lot of maybe is what, like 2.5 hours or something of finished run time, I think. So like how long would that take to make?
Like you said, it varies on the length of the book to begin with. That's kind of like the first part. And then so just like a general audiobook kind of like rule is for every hour of finished audio, you can expect a producer to spend anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of time dedicated to that hour. So that's pre-reading, doing their research about the characters, making their notes, and then doing the initial raw audio recording where you'll start and stop. If you like mess up something, you'll go back, you'll fix it. Listening through the raw audio to make sure that there's pronunciations that are correct and that there's nothing that you need to fix initially. Then you'll go through a mastering process, which is making sure that it's not too loud in one spot and too soft in another spot. There's certain specific criterias that the standards of the industry have that make sure that it's a consistent audiobook throughout for the listener. So you then go through that mastering process, you listen to it again to make sure that everything sounds good, and then you send it off. So it is a lot of commitment to that one, let's say that 1 hour, but it isn't, it's dependent on the person doing it. It's like, 4 to 6, I would say.
Yeah. Wow. And this is the kind of thing that people don't necessarily understand, like how all those pieces come together. And one of the questions was like, how many times do you have to read the book before you're ready to record it accurately? Like, do you, practice a chapter 14 times and then record it? Or are you fixing things after? How does that work?
Well, for me, if it's a contemporary romance, honestly, those are easier for me because the vernacular is something I'm more familiar with. And so it's not something that I need to spend as much time researching. That it kind of flows a little easier. If there's a lot of accents in a book, if they have a lot of travel going on in the book, then that affects how I will prep for that. I will do a lot of listening to those different dialects, and then I will practice that before I go into the chapter to make sure that I am not, sounding terrible. And so it's, for me, I definitely read the book. I read the book in its entirety at least once in a casual setting where I'm just enjoying it as a person and just jotting down very light notes about things that I notice that I want to go back later and look at as a audiobook professional. And then I'll go back again and take more very detailed notes, highlighting different characters, highlighting and making notes about their, like I said, their character choices. And then by the time I get to that point, if it's, like I said, like a non-accented book where everything's pretty generalized, I can go in and I can record back-to-back chapters pretty easily with those notes available and in front of me. So that, then I get into a flow, and I enjoy that. I like doing that long drives of recording so that I can really get into the arc of the story. But like I said, it's a lot of it is dependent on the book and the vernacular.
Yeah. So for some of the other authors out there who are thinking about doing audiobook versions, what makes it easier for you to bring that story to life? Is there anything authors can do to make that better, easier, more fun?
Oh, sure. I would say the things that I ask my authors that I work with initially is if it's a world that they know very, very well that is unfamiliar to me. So if it is a fantasy world, or if it is a country that they used to live in, or those types of things, I ask up front, like, what do you want to make sure that the audience gets out of this book? Like, what are the things that you really want to hit? Pronunciations of names, always. Even if it's like a very easy name, there's a difference between Anne and Annie, and it saves a lot of time on both our ends if it's, one way and then I recorded a different way. So those are things up front that are always super, super helpful and just better for both of us, because nobody wants to hear their characters' names pronounced wrong. Oh, it's the worst. Things like that. Any notes that you find helpful, I always encourage my authors to share with me, because the more communication and knowledge I have, the better. And it's a joint venture performing someone else's work. The goal always is to make sure that it's an authentic and very honest rendition of what the author wanted with the story.
Yeah, for sure. I find for me it's really helpful to do the neighbors, so the residents of Rivers End thing on my website, where it has all the pictures of everybody.
Oh my gosh, so
and
helpful.
that does seem helpful in terms of just communicating, the tone. And I mean, they've been chosen for their age and, being representative of what I think that character looks like and who they are. So I think that does definitely help. It's also really fun to do. So that's a benefit for both sides. There's nothing like scrolling through, pinning people to your Pinterest board that look like fun or whatever. So that has been highly entertaining. Did you have a favorite character in Maybe?
I mean, that's like asking a mom what their favorite kid is. That's I'm gonna defer. I'm gonna say no, because I'm getting to live with those characters a little bit longer in the sequel as well. And Rivers End is a really special place. I'm really enjoying the love of the community there, especially with even the smaller characters in this book that are major characters in different books. Like, that community is really something that that I would want to live in, honestly. It sounds like an ideal place.
Yeah, well, hey, I spend a lot of time there, so in a very real way, we are all living there, even if it's only like on a timeshare situation. It is fun, and we're gonna get to go to Mexico in the sequel, because that's where that one starts off.
Which is cultural notes.
Right? Yeah. Well, that one is my second home, because my family lives there about half the year. So, so that's going to be fun to kind of bring those two worlds together. And you'll have a few new characters to add into the mix of people you're not choosing from. So that will be good. One last thing I was curious, because this is always my favorite part of any video, is like the blooper reel. So I'm super curious if you have any fun stories about things that went sideways or stuff that didn't work that you'd like to share with all of us.
Oh man. Think. It wasn't pertaining to like doing a character, but I definitely did one entire chapter at like 10 o'clock at night with the mic off. I definitely, and it's probably my best take. The world will never know. I was like on one of those rolls, and I had taken a break, and I must have pressed a button, and I didn't double check all of my settings because I had been there, and I was just like getting a drink of water. So off I went. About the middle of the book, just when things are starting to get a little crazy, when they're going into the wedding dress trying on, and panic attacks and all of that, and definitely got done and was like, nailed it, and went to listen back the next day. Nothing, just a silent. Yep.
Yep.
So you learn learn your lessons. Now you check every single time, every time. So the more you know.
Much like the airplane pre-flight check, right?
Yeah,
there are no skips
there for a reason.
for safety. Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I'm going to put your website down in the notes below the video so that people can come and see what else you're up to. I have cyber-stalked you a small bit. I happen to know there's all kinds of fun things on there, so definitely worth a visit. And if you're curious about River's End, come find us, cjhuntromance.com. There's lots of stories, lots of characters, and you can listen to a lovely preview of the audiobook and hear Brenda introducing the story of Maybe and soon also Home. And who knows where else she'll pop up. There's a lot of other stories in the world and even in that family. So looking forward to working with you on the next book.
Thank you so much. I've really appreciated this, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I definitely would check out the Rivers End area. Like I said, it's a great community, and there's so many stories there to enjoy. And I've been enjoying some of them, and not even the ones that I'm initially reading out loud. It's just for fun. So definitely check it out. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Brenda. Take care, everybody. We'll see you around Rivers End.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being a part of this Creative Academy event. If you're not a member yet, join us today and unlock a wealth of resources, masterclasses, feedback opportunities, and online community events designed to help you reach the next step in your writing journey. No matter what stage you're at, we've got a helping hand to guide you along the way. Check out our free resource room if you'd like to get a taste of how we can help you reach your writing and publishing goals. Thank you for bringing us along on your writing and publishing journey, and Donna, Eileen, and I hope we'll see you around the Creative Academy soon.